In this tutorial, we're going to look at a more vertical approach to writing music for games. So you could think about this as having different arrangements of the same piece that you use for different circumstances. So your music might be broken down into tracks or stems, and imagine them playing back through a mixer, and you've got control over the individual volume of the stems. When everything's playing, it might be your full-on intense combat with 5 enemies. Say you're maybe fighting against 3 enemies, you might want a slightly less intense version, so tracks 7 and 8 might come out. Or if there's no enemies and you're just sneaking about, you might just have tracks 1 and 2 soloed. So essentially it's the same piece of music, but you're just changing the vertical arrangement of it. So in this instance, I'm going to try and help the player find their way through a maze by giving them some feedback musically. So let's import our layers, and you can see what I mean. So just bringing them in, each one of them is going to have a sound cue. We're adding them to a group just to keep things a bit more organized. And so we'll get them set up in Kismet. Now we want all of these sounds to be aligned in time. So what we're going to do is, when the level loads, we'll play the first track here. When that's finished playing, it's going to come back round and loop itself. But the other thing it's going to do is actually trigger all the other tracks so that they all stay in time with each other. So we want 5 of these. Because we've got 5 different layers. And they're all going to play back to the player's ears. So just link them up. And then we'll add our music to them. So the first play sound is going to start just with the pits. And then as the player gets closer to their destination, we're going to bring up the intensity a little bit by adding this. Then bring in some percussion. And some more percussion. And finally the piano. Okay, so level starts. This plays round by itself. When it loops again, it's going to re-trigger all of those other parts. Now, when I play this, obviously, we're going to hear them all playing the second time round. So that's our full intensity version. Now what I need is my mixer. I need control over the volumes of these other parts. So you'll notice in Kismet, if you right click objects, often you can expose other variables, and the one we want in this instance is the volume multiplier. And this means we can control the volume of the different music tracks. And there we have it. Now you can see in the level, we don't need that anymore. So I've put in some triggers throughout the level, and these are going to be controlling the volume of the different parts. So when the player reaches that trigger, for example, what I want is a new event using trigger touched, enabled multiple times, and I'm going to set the variable, which is a floating point number in this case, and I'm going to give it a value of 1 because I want the volume of this to come up to its maximum. So I'm going to target that one. So when I walk through that trigger, the volume of that track is going to come up to 1. so I'll be able to hear it. Now obviously at the moment everything starts at 1 already, so I want firstly on level start for everything to be set to 0. Except of course my initial pizzicato part. So I'm gonna add a volume multiplier to each of the play sounds and target it with that so that they should all start silently. Now when the players go in the right way, I'm going to bring in the musical parts, and if they happen to turn around and go back again, obviously I want to indicate that that is perhaps the wrong thing to do. So I've got my triggers aligned in pairs so that if the player comes back through the trigger, so for example there's the trigger that's going to turn the sound on. If we come back the wrong way, we're going to hit that trigger and that will mute the sound again. So let's just do that one and check that out. So this time everything's set to 0, and as I go through here I pass through my reverse trigger that's going to reset it to 0. Obviously we don't hear it because it's already silent, and now I'm getting an indication that I'm getting closer to my destination. If I get lost and come back round again, then that layer's turned off. Okay, let's put a couple of the others in as well. So say we get to here. This is my second layer here. So this trigger is going to mute that part. Not going there anymore. It's going to my second layer. But if I get round the corner, I'm doing the right thing, then this is going to bring its volume up full. Okay, so let's just try that. So wandering about. If I go down this corridor, it's not the right way, it's not helping me. I heard that layer come in, and this will help me through navigate the maze. And via the miracle of the pause button, you can see that I've now added the links into all the other triggers. So level loaded, all the sounds volume multipliers are set to 0 apart from our first track. Then as we go through each of the triggers, it turns the volume up to maximum of 1. If we come back through and we hit the secondary trigger in that area, we're going the wrong direction, so it mutes that part again. And we do that with all of our tracks, as you can see here, and then we find our way through the maze, hopefully. And there we are. We need some kind of musical conclusion at the end. But that just illustrates the point that we can expose the volume multiplier. We can synchronize our tracks using one kind of master controller here, and bring in different stems in and out, change their volume according to any kind of variable in the game. Now, the sharp-eared amongst you will have noticed that the volume doesn't actually change until the part is played again. So the volume multiplier on these play sounds only actually takes effect when it's triggered to play. So it says play at this volume. You can't actually change the volume of the piece of music whilst it's playing. Now this is something that we're probably going to want to do, to have more subtle control over the relative volumes of our musical stems, and we'll look at a solution to that in the next tutorial.